Hello everyone, and welcome to our fourth episode. Should we call these episodes? We're in the first season, fourth episode.
I'm sure this will be on Netflix.
And today I'm going to start with a quote from Hippocrates, where he says, "Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food." So that's a hint of what we'll be talking about today. How food can be healing, which I know we have heard in the last few weeks. We've heard that comment. So just as a little recap of what we've been talking about over the last 3 weeks, the first session we talked about the immune system. The second session we talked about the importance of the right pH factor. And last week we talked about the biome system and the microbiome system and a healthy gut. And all of that leads to today's topic, which is about food, glorious food. You know that song. And I know that you have said in your in a lot of your writings that food can heal you, which is quite a bold statement. And so I thought we should maybe dig into that a little bit, and what that means. And I know you've talked about 4 important aspects to how we think about food. And I know we all spend a lot of time talking about and maybe preparing and thinking about food. So how can we think about it in a new way? So let's maybe start with the idea of how food becomes a important element to our health.
Okay, well, we've talked in the last 3 sessions about how to keep our immune system strong, how to balance our pH, and how to, get that gut garden microbiome healthy so that the good bacteria is not overpowered by the bad bacteria. Well, how does all that happen? Well, we mentioned that it's about food and what you're putting in your mouth, what fuels each of those cells, and how that so food then becomes the very thing that makes all the difference. And so then you have to think about, well, okay, there's a lot of food out there. There's a lot of food I like, and there's, so how do I make those good choices to build that healthy system? And that's...
Well, and so many people talk about the diets they're on and which diet works for this. What do you say about diets?
Well, I guess what I'd like to do is talk about my proactive approach to food, and there's 4 things to keep in mind. And the first one is you have to eat. You have to eat. And so diet can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And personally, I would like people to never even think about dieting. Just eat the right foods. And if you eat the right foods in the right way and you nourish your body and give it what it needs, and that's not just, let me step back. That's to say that if you satisfy your hunger, you're not going to overeat. And if you, and you're not going to undereat because you know that you need to satisfy your hunger, okay? So, a lot of times we think, well, if I just ate less, or I skip breakfast, or skip a few meals and just eat once a day, well, then what you're doing, there's an intelligent system in our body that says, our body goes, ooh, you're not, they're not getting, food isn't coming in. So we're in a famine state. So when your body thinks it's going into a famine, what it'll do, it'll slow down your metabolism, it'll start storing away fat, because it needs to protect itself for that oncoming famine.
Mhm.
And in the short run, the reason people think diets work is because in the short term, they see because their body is probably losing water weight, losing nourishment,
Mhm.
so it looks like it's losing, but then what kicks in is your feast mode, and then you start eating everything in sight, and you go into this cycle, and those delicate systems don't benefit from that. And most diets don't work because of that, because you eventually get so hungry, you'll eat everything. So why not just create, if you want to create a diet, create one that's a lifestyle of eating real food that nourishes you so that you don't need to eat constantly because you're undernourished. And I'm kind of going
Yes.
into it in a long way, but I think you get the point.
Yes, and you're nodding your head, Michelle, you've run into that, I'm sure. with-
Well, Bill and I talked too, that a lot of the people that come in and they wanna lose weight, and we have them do a little diary of what they've been eating, almost always, they're barely eating anything. And
Mhm.
when you get them actually eating more food, but the right foods, they start losing weight. And that makes no sense to them intuitively, but, or you have the people who are like, oh, I make myself eat breakfast every day even though I'm not hungry. If your body's not hungry for breakfast, your body doesn't need breakfast.
Mhm.
So the concept that you have to eat at certain times, or you have to, instead of listening to your body,
Yes.
is, what I see a lot of it. I'm like, if you're not hungry when you get up in the morning, don't eat any breakfast. That was the Kellogg's commercial that told you to eat that. You don't need to do that. If you wake up and your body is really hungry in the morning, have an omelet, But so many people, they quit listening to their body, and they just do what they, the commercials have told them to do, or what their parents told them to do, and you have to finish your plate even though you're full.
Mhm.
No, if you're full, stop eating.
Well, you had to do that for yourself. How did you make the transition?
I had to come to realization of, I knew what was bad for me,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I just had to change it. There was just no, a donut is not worth any death.
Mhm.
It's just not worth it. And even though it's been a long time, I've given up a lot of donuts, I don't regret giving up those donuts.
Mhm. Mhm.
And, sunrises and sunsets are much more valuable than, and it drives me crazy when people sit there and say, enjoy life, have that cookie, have that piece of cake. And absolutely, have a cookie or a piece of cake. We're not saying don't do that, but just realize too that life is more enjoyable living than sitting there eating a whole bunch of sugar and processed flour. And if you really have to have a good life, and I'm sorry to say this, if your life is based upon having a great piece of cake, you really maybe need to think about what you're doing in your life.
Good point. Well, now you've raised a really big issue, the choices of food, which we have each day. How do you kind of steer the direction from a proactive approach into the choices?
Well, the first is eat,
Mhm.
and then of course you want to eat, make good choices. So what are you going to eat? And we've talked in the last few sessions about this because we discussed how 80 to 90% of what you put in your mouth should be alkaline and 20% acidic. But in that acidic range, you want to make sure it's quality, like grass-fed beef, or things that are going to give your body nourishment. So if you keep that in mind and really learn about what are the alkaline foods, which at least twice a day you should try and eat as many leafy greens and all the different colorful vegetables, and you can eat a ton of that and fill yourself up, and it's not gonna hurt you, But and then you do need to make sure you get the protein that you need, and so just looking at that and eating real food, real real, you know. And the reason is because we've gotten so far removed from how food is created that we're not even sure what real is. And a little story that a friend of mine told me who works at a camp, they had chickens running around, and one of the kids that came to camp said, "Is that a chicken?" And he said, "Yeah." And then the little person said, "Well, where are the nuggets?" So I mean, clearly we need to realize, and we were just earlier before the show talking about gardening and how important that can be to really know where our food is coming from. So that's another topic that we'll talk about. But if you can just keep, you know, that alkaline, acidic piece in mind whenever you put food in your mouth. The other, there's an organization called Nutritional Weight and Wellness. They do podcasts every week. And actually the podcast for this week is on the immune system and how to, you know, help your immune system be healthy. And their point is that what you eat is gonna directly affect how you feel. And so they really talk a lot about, and so if you need more information, that's a very good source. And the thing is, oils, you don't want to have damaged oils or oils that, you know, you want oils that are closest to natural, like coconut oil or olive oil, and in their best form. So anyway, those are
simple things.
right.
And maybe that's one reason that people are starting to watch for locally grown
right.
or where they come from, because part of what you propose in your third aspect is where the food comes from. And so maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Right. Well, you know, it's not hard if you know what you want to put in your body is real food and it's healthy. That's simple. But then the complex part is, where do you find the food that it doesn't? Last week you guys were mentioning reading the labels. Well, you know, that's where we need to buy this real food we're talking about that doesn't have 10 different words we can't pronounce. It's just beef, or you know. And so that's the important thing. And then where is it grown? I mean, so often our vegetables and fruits are sprayed with all kinds of pesticides. So the reason people recommend organic is because then you don't have to deal with all the spraying. And there are, what's the Dirty Dozen, dozen or something?
Yeah.
You can look that up, and they're sprayed probably more than any others.
Or there's something
some
where
that
you
aren't
eat the
sprayed.
outside of it, like
Yeah.
Red pepper.
like strawberries are on the Dirty Dozen,
Right.
because it's sprayed right on the part you eat.
Right.
Yes.
You know, whereas maybe it's not as important to buy organic bananas because you're gonna peel it. So there, you know, there's some that are more important than others. But
Right. You need to think that through. And then there's the GMO issue is a very important issue. I mean, there are actual companies that have figured out that instead of spraying, they actually paint the pesticide onto the seed. So it's going in the soil, and I don't know if there's a disconnect or what, but there's got to be an obvious perspective that that's going to affect us.
Right.
So, and then for the way that our, you know, our cattle basically are raised, a lot of times there's antibiotics that they feed them to fatten them up. They're being fed kind of a processed diet, like the one we're supposed to stay away from. Our animals are being fed those same kind of things that aren't the natural thing for them to eat, but kind of the things that'll fatten them up. So,
I heard Skittles.
yes, yes.
So that sometimes Skittles are mixed in with
Yes.
animal food.
It's very,
Wow.
yes. So if you can get beef that's grass-fed, because that's what they're supposed to eat, and even their fat is good for you, you know, it's healthy. And I guess I would like to say one other thing about fat.
Mhm.
We need fat. That does not make you fat
Mhm.
unless you're eating the wrong kinds of fat.
Mhm.
But fat is, you know, important for every cell in your body and your brain to function. And in the 1950s, we were told fat is bad for us. And so then we started all these non-fat things, and has it helped? I mean, just think about it. No, not really. And they've now realized that good fat is almost I want to ask you guys this too, because, you know, we kind of count on sugar to be our energy source,
Mm-hmm.
but really fat is a better energy source
It is.
than sugar.
Sugar's like when you go to start, if you start a fire,
Uh-huh.
sugar's like the paper that you can easily start. It'll burn hot and bright for 2 seconds. When you burn fat for energy, that's like a chunk of coal that could slowly burn for hours, and it's more intense, it's more long lasting, it's more non all over the place.
Yeah.
And you're not dependent on what you just say. When you eat carbs for energy, then once you digest them, you use them up fairly quickly, then you have to eat again.
Mhm.
And
Right, right.
But fat, you can eat something high, you know, an avocado, something high in fat, that can give you energy. But if you didn't eat an avocado, you have fat in your body all the time. Like your carbs burn off fairly quickly and you run out of glycogen. But fat is always, everybody has fat. Even the thinnest person has fat on their body that they can use for energy all the time. So you don't get these highs and lows in energy, because if you need more and you haven't eaten in a while, then your body will just pull it out of the fat that you store. So you always have this ready supply of energy and you don't get the highs and the lows.
So what are some of the good examples of high fat kinds of foods that are good to eat?
Well, like the healthy
Avocado.
oils, like the coconut oil, vegetable oil, or not vegetable oil, olive oil.
Don't
Not-
say the B word.
Not vegetable. Avocados, grass-fed beef, like a good ribeye steak, nothing wrong with that. Salmon, obviously wild caught. Don't eat that farm stuff.
Eggs, pasture.
Yep, eggs are very healthy. Eat the whole egg, none of that egg white.
Yeah.
Eat the whole egg. So yeah, those
There are a lot of
um,
myths that need to be dispelled.
Yep.
it
And
sounds like.
butter, if it's grass-fed butter, you know, or,
Yep.
you know, cheese that's made from grass-fed
Yep.
Mhm.
cows, I mean, all of that is really good.
Never ever buy margarine, buy real butter. Real, the good high quality stuff.
Mhm.
And the other thing is bone broth,
Yeah.
which is so yummy for, base for some soup or stew or anything. It's
Mhm.
really great,
Mhm.
so.
Well, you've talked about kind of the 4 aspects of a proactive approach to food. One being to be sure that you eat and then eat the right things and know where they come from. And then the 4th that you've talked about is personalizing it to yourself. How does that work?
Well, you know, this is interesting because about a week ago I was talking to a medical professional that I wanted to work with. You know, if people want to do a wellness visit with a professional, and I said, what kind of tests would you do to see what's going on in their system to know what they need to work on, or if all is well, you know? And she said the first thing I would do to test would be to find out what food sensitivities they might have. And I think that's another thing that we all think, oh, these foods are the healthy foods, and these foods, but each individual person may have, you know, in general, that might work,
Mhm.
but some people have more sensitivity to certain kinds of food.
Mhm.
And if you don't know what those things are, it could really do a number on your intestinal wall, you know, or, for example, I'll give you an example, you know, for people, gluten is not a craze. It's kind of become the thing to do, but for people who truly have celiac,
Mhm.
I mean, if, you know, it's inflammation in their system, their body can't digest food correctly, and it can, you know, destroy their
Mhm.
intestinal lining. But there's other people that may be gluten sensitive just because of the way gluten is produced.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so that's not good either. And then what I found out, because I'm an O-type blood, and there is, Dr. D'Amato did a lot of research on different blood types, and he found out that there are foods for different blood types that act as a superfood, a poison, or a neutral. And just to give you an example, I'm O, type O blood, and for that type, if you put wheat in your body, it's like putting the wrong kind of gas in the car. So I'm not celiac, but it still is an irritant to my system. So it's good to know those things. Another example would be people that have arthritis, and you guys maybe know more about this too, but it's like the nightshades cause challenges in their system. And the nightshade vegetables are like tomatoes, peppers, and so a lot of times, and Nutritional Weight and Wellness they have a program about that where they'll talk, when you cut back on those, it makes a difference in your arthritic kind of condition. So we, in general, there's,
There are foods that influence
Exactly.
some of the.
Exactly, but you should know what, and if your body is giving you messages, don't ignore it. Don't ignore it, because you need to, if you're getting headaches, there's something that you're eating that is probably causing, so anyway, do you guys have some experience with that?
Well, and there's, like, a lot of people, it's very common to not be able to digest dairy that well.
Right.
That's a very common, it doesn't bother me at all. I know I have gone completely dairy-free for several months to try it. I added it back in, it didn't make any difference. So for me personally, I do eat a lot of heavy cream or cheeses and things like that. But there's a lot of people that have to say, okay, for you, dairy is probably not the right choice. So when you talk about personalizing it,
Exactly.
and there's people, I think if I had like a lot of health issues, I would try one of the elimination diets where you kind of go to meat and vegetables and take everything out and then add stuff back in to see, does that make a difference?
Right.
If you got rid of gluten, if you got rid of dairy, if you got rid of nightshades, a lot of the things that are triggers for a lot of people, go without them for a couple months, then add them back in and see, oh, that's fine for me, or oh, no, that's not fine for me.
Exactly.
That's a good technique.
There's one other thing I want to just mention real quick. There is one, when I was doing my research, there was a woman who wrote a book about food and how it heals your body. And she and her husband, he thought being a vegetarian was the best way to go. So they both decided to do that. And for her, it worked. For him, he continued to get less healthy. And so finally, what she said in the book is that he listened to his body. It needed more protein. And once he incorporated it back in, he was fine. So, one modality or one kind, ideology or whatever of eating does not mean it works for everyone the same way.
Yes.
So,
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Have you run into that with some of your members?
Yeah, I have. You can come in and talk to us. We fully support carnivore, we fully support keto, we fully support veganism. We support just about everything if it works for you, and if you can make it work for you. So, in fact, there's this big WWE wrestler, just a huge guy, like 350 pounds. He's big, and he's extremely muscular. Well, he tried the keto diet because he's like, he was recovering from an injury, and then he heard the keto diet. All these people are talking about how they're getting shredded on keto and keto. He did the keto, and he just got fat. He just got fatter. It's because and he went and got tested, got his blood type tested and stuff like that, and he wasn't able to metabolize the animal fats. So he had to lay off animal fats. He had to go to more of a higher protein diet with more vegetables and fruits and everything else. So yeah, like you said, one size don't fit all. And but we fully support everything. We just want you eating better.
There's no body type or blood type where Pop-Tarts is the answer. Sorry. blood type calls for. Stop.
We don't eat cardboard with paste on it.
Oh,
I actually had somebody this morning, this makes me sad when I hear people say that. Someone just said this to me this morning. We were talking about a challenge that some other members are choosing for themselves, and they're going to pick a healthy diet that they like, and they're gonna do it for 75 days. And they're, on this particular challenge, they're not allowed to have any cheat meals for the 75 days. And we were talking about that, and she said, oh, I can't imagine knowing I'm gonna go 75 days without anything delicious. Oh my gosh, sugar is not the only thing delicious. Like, good food is really just a really good salad, or a really perfectly cooked steak, or, you know, bacon wrapped jalapenos, or, I mean, there's amazing, delicious foods. You don't have to eat something out of a box or a can or chock full of sugar for it to be delicious, and that just makes me, it just breaks my heart when people say that. I'm like, you can eat really amazing, delicious food every day and still be eating what nourishes your body.
Exactly, I totally, yeah, and if you just keep in mind grass-fed, free, you know, chickens that have been out in the, you know, eating bugs and instead of eating, you know, processed
Something that
food.
came out.
Yeah, and wild caught fish, you know, that are in, you know, they're, if you focus on that and focus on all these wonderful vegetables and learn how to do them in a delicious way, you won't go back, because it's not, you don't want, you know, you can't eat that other stuff because it's so awful.
And then there's another myth too, and it's like when you go to the grocery store, you see grass-fed beef right here, and then you see the regular beef right here, and this one's $1.50 more than this one. Yes, at that moment, it's gonna cost more, but in the long run, it actually, your better health and your better living will save you money down the long road.
Oh, totally.
Medications, hospital visits, doctor visits, and even, I don't know about you guys, but the cleaner you eat, or I eat anyways, the less I actually eat.
Right.
You know,
Food is more
You-
satisfying.
Because you're being nourished,
Yeah.
and you don't need.
you put a little nice
Craving.
grass-fed steak right here about this big, that'd be enough to fill me up, but you put a big old bowl or a big old container of cheese puffs, you'll eat that all the way to the bottom,
And you're still hungry.
and
Now-
you're still hungry.
Now, how do you take a member through the process? Because I know that you're not, I've been told that you're not pushy about it, but people see success. So how does that work? How do you do that?
We have to show them that their life is more important than any food they put in their body. And in fact, their life will get more important with more important, better food they do put in their body. So it's like the cheese puffs. You know what? I think I'd gag right now if I had cheese puffs. I haven't had them in 20 years, and they're, but they have to wake up to their privilege of having a life. Their miracle. We're all walking miracles, because we have so many, you know, right from the very beginning, we have everything bombarding us, and we don't even need to be creative. Think about that too.
So it's
You
about
know,
having more
so-
respect for yourself so that you are more
Respect and love for
discriminating.
yourself, yes. And you need to have that for you. And you know what? If you don't have that respect and love for yourself, you know, Michelle and I, we always have ears that we can listen to. But you know what? And if we can't help you with it, we need to find somebody that will help you with it. Because your life is very, very valuable, very valuable, and you have so many people around you and connected to you that you need to try your best to take care of yourself for them. Lord knows I don't want either one of my kids to even think about putting me in the ground for another 40, 50 years. I want them to go out, I want them to live their lives, I want them to have fun, and I don't want them having to visit dad when he's 53 years old in the hospital because he had health conditions that he could have helped prevent. You know, so if you're gonna wear your mask, do some air squats, some push-ups, and eat some ground natural beef. All right, so let's just put everything into perspective here now.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
we'll-
so
That's good. So we'll, and put up on the mirror, let food be your medicine and medicine be your food.
Can I
Yes.
just
Yes.
mention this book? This is a book by Dr. Mark Hyman, and it's called Food, What the Heck Should I Eat? And it's all about what we've been talking about. He gives you very specific information about it and where to find it, and so,
I have
Well,
not
thank
read
you.
that book, but I have read several articles by Mark Hyman and found them very helpful, or videos on online and stuff too, so found them very helpful.
Great, so, take the pledge.
Yeah. Oh.
Yes.
We have a new pledge, but, next week, or next session would be a good time to take the pledge, because the topic will be on movement is a must. So,
And at Ascension, we do help you with your food plan too, so it's not just exercise. We actually help everybody with what to eat, and we talk about what did you eat yesterday, and what could we have done different, or where is it working. So we do work with people specifically on what foods work for them, so.
good. All right, well, thank you, and looking forward to our next session on fitness and movement and how food works together with that.
So get off Facebook and get to work.